Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Welcome to Strong Dads. This is Merle Hutchinson and Kyle Crofford bringing you another great show today. This is messed up.
Continue.
All right, I'll go ahead and continue. Today we have one of the smartest, good-looking studs that we have ever had on Strong Dads. He is an amazing husband, father, and friend. I would like to welcome Kyle Crofford to the Strong Dads podcast.
Great intro.
Kyle, how are you doing? Wow. I asked Kyle to write an intro for the show, and this is what I get. Oh, my God.
I'm the guest on the show.
I feel like I have to go brush my teeth now, wash my mouth out after that garbage that just came out of my mouth.
I'm very flattered that you would say all those nice things about me, Merle. It's not what you said before I hit the record button. No. What's going on today?
Not much at all. You know, kind of fighting the cold here, not the COVID. It's a sinus thing. The sinus
I think it's
thing,
going around.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, part of what happens in winter in the great Midwest. So fighting that.
That's right.
Flew out to Utah over the weekend.
Yeah, you got the old shots in the knee, right?
I got some PRP injections. I screwed that up in the last show. I forgot. I lost my mind, but it's platelet-rich plasma.
Okay.
And so got a heavy-duty concentration. Got 7 shots in one knee and 6 in another. That's always joyful experience.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So did that. That's out around Park City. So that was the first time I actually went up into Park City.
Okay.
And went up there, spent a couple hours just walking around. Pretty cool. So, but I literally flew in on Thursday after 7-hour delays of flight, which that was a nightmare. And then I hop on this thing called a plane. Might as well be a sardine. And then that was ridiculous. I hate flying anymore. There's you can't do anything more to make flying worse than what the airlines do.
What they almost like dehumanize you. It's just like stand in a line, you know, just take your shoes off, you know, it's take your belts off. I mean,
and I get it. Like, this is for your security.
Yeah, I get it.
But and I'm okay with some of that part. But when you get on the plane, I mean, it is just ridiculous. I'm not a huge guy. I don't know how a guy bigger than me even sits in these chairs.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the whole thing is stupid. I'm sitting there thinking, take 2, max 3 rows of seats out of here, and everybody can breathe.
Yeah.
And you probably still aren't going to go out of business. Again, I'm on my little rampage, but I'm like, why would anybody want to fly? So I've come to the idea that if I can drive it in 8 hours, I'm not flying it, because there's no, like, my total time of flying to Utah, I had left at about 5 in the morning, didn't get in until 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
You know, I was just, this is ridiculous.
Joy, happy. Anyways,
that's not what the show's about.
No, what are we talking about today? Since I'm the guest.
You are the guest. Thank you for being a guest on Strong Dad. So we are in part of our series of defense. And so the things that we need to learn to defend as men, as strong dads in our home, in our marriage, there are certain things that we need to step up and be aware of, and then have actually a thought of, well, what does that look like in my house? All right. And so last time we just talked about how we kind of need to de-escalate hot situations so that we don't have battles in relationships and in our home and our marriage. Like, how do we de-escalate these things so that we don't have to get into the battle? Okay.
Sure.
But this week we're going to actually be a little bit more practical. And we're going to start off with being more concrete, and that is like the actual defense of your home. And so we brought Kyle Crofford in because this is what you do for a living, right? I mean, through the whole fire and damage and those kind of things, you guys are called into these kind of situations all the time as a fireman. hopefully, you talked last week about the idea that even though you enjoy fighting fighters, the biggest part of your training is actually in preventative and teaching preventative.
Yep.
Okay. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the preventative side. Let's thank a couple of our sponsors, and then let's get into the practical sense of what we need to be aware of and defend in our home.
I like it. Strong Dads, we would like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us. Really do appreciate Casey's. They are a premier garden center located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Check them out. Home decor, awesome landscaping needs. For sure. Check them out. Let them know that we sent you down there, and really do appreciate Casey's Outdoor Solutions for coming alongside of us.
All right. Good deal. I also would like to thank the Crimer's Beer House located down on 128 outside of Cleves, Ohio. Go down there for a great dinner and in a great location. Check out the menu that Mark's got down there. Got a little German bent to it, so if you like German cuisine, it's good stuff, but lots of great food on the menu, so go check out Crimer's Beer House.
Awesome. Yeah, so when it comes to this idea of is your home protected, just similar to what you were talking about with the fire aspect, we're going to get into, protecting our home from fires, from floods, storms, intruders. And I think that, similar to what you were saying, Merle, the last show we talked, the number one part of my job is prevention. And so I think it's a good place to start that when we talk about these type of, actually going into protecting our home, I think it's important to note that there will never be a time when I truly don't believe where we can be 100% protect. Our house cannot be 100% protected.
Right, we're always going to have a level of vulnerability.
Yes, there's always going to be. I mean, we'll go through different steps that we can do to hopefully prevent some, disaster from coming into your home, from some incidents from coming into your home. But I think at the end of the day, it's really important to note that I don't think it's actually possible to be 100% protected from invasions, from storms, from fires. I think it's good to note and a good place to start that there's no way to 100% protect ourselves from that.
Right. I mean, we just saw the folks down in Kentucky and Tennessee that got just blasted by a bunch of tornadoes, and there are things that we can do. Whether in the construction of the home or just getting our family away in certain situations and taking cover. But, Mother Nature's Mother Nature, right? And the laws of nature, whether it's a fire and how it's going to start in your home, I mean, they are what they are. And I think that is a very humbling reminder that you're not all that.
Yep.
There's something bigger out there.
Yep. Well, this idea of protection, I think it goes into, we've done whole shows on being a provider for our family. And last night in my small group, we actually were in 1 Timothy and talking about being a provider for your family and being a provider. The 1 Timothy 5 talks about, being a provider for widows and this whole concept and this idea that God is calling men to be providers. And I think it's a great place it's a great reminder for us as men that, when we look at our home, we should be doing things that are protecting our family. We should provide protection for our family. Again, it's a team effort. I really believe that you and your wife need to come together to ultimately protect your kids, right? But I think at the end of the day, when it comes to provision of protecting our home, it is going to fall on us as strong dads.
Yeah, I want to point something out there. I've run into a number, especially I'll just call out younger dads, husbands, that I don't know, they get trapped in certain things of playing video games. They kind of seclude themselves from the family. They just go do their own thing. And then they fall asleep. And the next thing you know, mom is the one who's making sure that the doors are all locked in the house. Yeah. That mom's making sure that security is in check. And I just feel like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. At the end of the day, when somebody breaks in your house, are you going to throw your wife out in front of you?
Right.
That doesn't mean I fall asleep often before Linda does.
Sure.
Okay. But when I get up, my habit is I go through and I check the doors.
Yeah. Well, we had Linda on the show a long time ago. She said that was one of the things that she kind of leaves up to you. You have to go around and make sure all the doors are locked.
It's just security and maintenance. It's because part of my deal is, if somebody comes in the house, it's going to be on me. I'm not going to say, honey, go protect us. And so I think some of these younger guys especially, and I just say younger guys because that's just where I see it that comes in. I mean, I have in sessions, I have these wives that they don't say, oh, and I go lock the doors. They go, and then I have to go lock the doors.
Yeah.
Like they actually, that does bother them, that
Sure.
they have to step up and take care of the security of the home. Because it's not natural to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, that's a little call out. You guys who are sitting there falling asleep and not taking care of that, get off the couch and take care of the security.
Good deal. Yeah. So let's get into this. This idea, the first thing that I wanted to talk about, this idea of flood and protecting our home from a flood. And this is really interesting, and I'll get into it in a second. I think we are very fortunate. For anyone that is listening or watching in the Cincinnati area, we don't live in a floodplain, right? Or
not unless you live in downtown
or
Cincinnati or Lawrenceburg or
Yeah.
Aurora or Falmouth.
Well, where I live, I'm not in the floodplain. No,
You're on the hill.
So this idea of floods, I think, is maybe a little foreign to some people to think about the actual idea of a body of water that is flooding and coming into our house. And not too long ago, actually a couple of days ago, my sister and brother-in-law's basement actually flooded. And it's kind of crazy that we were getting ready in the midst of this show and kind of planning for this show, and it really just brought to light some things when it comes to that protecting our home from the idea of floods. My brother, my brother-in-law, they spent money to get a backup for their sub pump. And then that backup failed, right? And then that's
great.
Yeah, I guess you got to have a backup to the backup, right?
Yeah.
But I think it really brought up, and before we even hit the record button on the show, you and I were just talking about this idea of having a generator, having an ability to still function, have our house operate the way it needs to in order to prevent or keep a flood away from our basement. Because, we do get heavy rains here in the Cincinnati area, and wherever you're listening, I'm sure, the same can be said. We get heavy rains where, especially, most basements are underground. And so the natural instinct is, because there's water all around underground. So I think it's good to talk about the idea of a flood, even if it is maybe not in the forefront of your mind of something that could happen to your house.
Kyle, I think it's kind of funny. I know I'm a gun owner. You're a gun owner. So I know guys who will go out and drop $300, $400, $500, $800 on a pistol or something, but they won't spend the money on a generator.
Yeah.
And I will promise you that over the course of your life, your generator will save you more than your gun will.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh no, I can't. I'm not going to buy one of those generators. But you'll go out and buy a $500 a pistol. And again, I'm not against the pistol at all.
Yep.
But it's like, it's just a matter of priority here.
Yep. Well, we with obviously it's kind of you're almost like a reactive mindset now, since we've had a disaster at my sister's house. Their basement flooded. The conversation of buying a generator is now where if we would have had foresight, and forethought, and be like, maybe we should have this generator for all, everyone in our family.
You can share the generator.
And we can share the generator.
As long as you're not all in the same neighborhood.
So we've actually, because of this very event, we're looking at buying a generator. I've taken a little step further. One thing that I'm looking at is a generator that actually can run on propane and also fuel. So, God forbid there's ever a massive power outage and gas stations are unable to even pump gas, we can still use propane. So looking at different options like that, I think, is a great way to getting in that protective mindset. I think it is good for you and your family. Again, they, like what you're talking about, they are expensive, right? And,
Yeah.
and it is a kind of one of those little painstaking upfront costs to invest into something like that. But when you're talking about actually having the foresight, having a vision for your family, knowing that this $600, $700, $800 tool, right, is something that I hope I never have to use. But man, when I do need it, man, it's going to be greatly beneficial for my family.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk a little bit about, too, like, and this is common in our area, not just the floods, but the wind, like tornadoes, hurricanes, those kind of things. This is another thing that I think a lot of us just buy a home, and we just don't really think about, well, how is our house set up? Because the first thing that happens, like, we've had several pretty good sized storms around here. We've not been hit by a tornado, but we've had some crazy windstorms and stuff. And my sons never really, I think they may have looked at me, but my daughter has always said, Dad, what should we do?
Yeah.
I mean, so she's looking to me. And so I've laid out the house, just in a like, okay, here's what you do. So wind is much damaging. Like when we have a tornado or something that can come through, like that's pretty intimidating. The idea that you think about your house and direct your kids. Okay, kids, here's the deal. Here's what wind can do. And here's where we go in our house. All right. And so, in our house, we actually, when we built this house, I had the opportunity, we call it the bomb shelter. And it's the cellar area underneath the front porch that is all concrete. And I mean, it's bomb proof, so to speak. And our kids know that, like heavy winds, tornado, that's where you go. If you don't have that sort of thing, then you need to locate what it is that you do have in your home, and your kids need to know why that's where you go.
Yeah. Well, this very idea, this is something, going back to my training in the fire service, there's a saying that floats around the fire service that if you save the staircase, you can save the house. So if you start to evaluate and look at your house and you're like, I don't have that area, I'm a firm believer underneath your staircase in your basement is going to be one of the safest places. Again, this is something in the few, the tornado warnings that go off fairly often in this general area. We've had to bring our girls down into the basement and we tuck underneath our basement staircase. It's little things like, that they're obviously scared and they're worried and they're nervous and we'll get into this on the fire aspect of everything too, but just reminding your kids that we don't care about any of your stuffed animals. We don't care about, all we care about is making sure you are underneath that staircase, and then, obviously it's frustrating because sometimes those tornado warnings last a while, right? And then so that they get antsy and they want to move around, and we have windows in our basement. And again, when it comes to storms and tornadoes and such, those windows are very, very dangerous to, because you get, you want to peek your eyes out there and see what's going on, myself included, right? And just the importance of telling our Jenny and I have told our girls that, that this is one of those circumstances where we kind of, we're essentially helpless, right? There's not much we can do. I can't prevent a tornado from happening, but what I can do is I can put them in the safest place I know in my house.
Yeah, and they need to know that. Like, part of anxiety comes from the apprehension of the unknown, right? And so the idea that you as a dad, even if you're not 100% certain yourself, the idea that you speak it with confidence, kids, this is what we do, right? Versus you running around like you're the crazy because you don't know what to do. So you should lay it out in your head. Hey, this is how we're going to roll in our house if the tornado or the winds or, and even have different levels. So I'm at that point now, especially my daughter's a lot more sensitive to this. So when we have the tornado warning, now. Okay, so you have tornado watch, then you have tornado warning. Tornado watch, just like, the atmosphere could be right for a tornado. Tornado warning is that we've spotted something in the area, okay, whether it's touchdown or not. So, at this point, I've trained her, listen, when we see tornado warning, for your sake, for our sake, let's go down to the bomb shelter, all right? And so now she just knows, like, if she's home by herself, it was a tornado warning, I just went right downstairs. Right? That's provided a sense of security for her.
I like it. Yeah, so this moving kind of to the next one, and this is obviously something that I deal with on a regular basis.
This is your area. This is why I brought you in.
This
take it away.
This is the sole reason why I'm here. So this idea, so when we talk about fires and this very idea of preventing fires or protecting your house from a fire, or if that fire happens, what do we do? This is something that I live and breathe every day when I go to work. And when we talk about fires, there are, in America, there are three main causes of fires. The three most prevalent reasons why there's fires in a home in America. There's three reasons, and the first one being cooking. We go on cooking fires, kitchen fires, quite often. And it's something that happens quite often. The next one is portable heaters or some type of an additional heating unit that causes heat. We see it right now, obviously in wintertime. This is something that happens all the time.
Is there more, when I think about portable heaters, is it more likely to have problems with like an electric portable heater or a gas propane type?
It's typically the electrical. Yep. Because those are the ones. A lot of times, the actual coils that there's no a lot of times they're, again, the cheaper ones. There's no shut off on those. They just keep running, and then obviously we know electric and heat don't like each other too much because electric produces its own heat.
Yeah.
And when you increase that with a portable unit, an additional heating source, that's when we get the bad news. And then the third most common cause of fires in America is faulty wiring. And again, kind of plays right into the portable heating units, right? But faulty wiring, we get electrical fires, my goodness, all the time. All the time.
Just because they're so difficult up in a wall or behind, you can't see them typically.
Yep, exactly. So breaking those three down, I think when we talk about protecting our home, this very idea of cooking and cooking fires, kitchen fires, man, I cannot tell you the number of times gone into a house where the stove has caught fire, and you look at this stove and you're like, if you would have done a little bit of preventative maintenance on your stove, i.e. clean it, man,
just like there's crud all over.
There's just stuff all over because I know this from experience. When's the last time you turn on your stove to cook something in your oven and it smells, or there's a little bit of smoking because stuff has dripped to the bottom, the bottom pan of your.
So you're speaking now the oven itself,
the oven.
Even the pan.
Yeah, I think there's so much to actually just cleaning your stove and your oven on a fairly regular basis, because if you use it often, you should be cleaning it often. Those kind of go hand in hand. So yeah, grease fires, we get those a lot. Golly, you change your grease out. Like the very, very, what's to you and I may seem very simple task to do is not necessarily always common knowledge, that there even an appliance like a stove or an oven, there has to be some maintenance that comes along with that.
Right.
So
clean your stove, clean your oven.
Yes. And the other thing, which I think is important for any home, is to have fire extinguishers. Have them in a relevantly close proximity to your kitchen. They make fire extinguishers for kitchens. Because again, if you're talking grease, putting water on your grease is not going to end well, especially if that said grease is on fire. Like water and grease don't like each other. They have a tendency
to
it spreads. So go out and go to any of the big box stores, go to any hardware store and get a fire extinguisher that is meant for kitchens. I think is a great way, again, because these are the things. Yes. So say you've cleaned your stove, there's still potential for there to be a fire, right? And that's when we get into that idea that we can do everything under the sun to ensure that there's no fire. But at the end of the day, something might happen. And I think it's good to be prepared for when that does happen.
You're talking about that, and I'm going back to my daughter again. She likes to be in the kitchen and she likes to bake. And, now she's old enough that she has some sense about how those things work. But when she was a little bit younger, a couple of times, Linda and I were gone at work, and she just took it upon herself to start baking cookies and stuff. And, because she had seen Mom turn the oven on and do all that stuff, but there was lack of connection of understanding, like, well, you can't leave, this out by the oven when you're doing this. And I came home one day and she had the house filled with smoke. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, I was just, and it's like, you got to, we didn't tell her, no, you can't do that if we're not there, you know?
Well, it just made me think, so you're a fire extinguisher, something that a lot of people don't know. There's actually an acronym when it comes to using your fire extinguisher, and it's called PASS, P-A-S-S. So it's pull. So most fire extinguishers have some form of a pin. So pulling that, you're going to aim it, the A, you're going to squeeze, and then you're going to sweep. So in basic level fire training, we teach people when they pick up a fire extinguisher, it's pass, pull, aim, squeeze, sweep.
Okay.
So it's a good reminder, because again, maybe for me it seems very commonplace to know how to use a fire extinguisher, but for the common person, something they may never have an opportunity to do. It's also good because some people start squeezing that fire extinguisher and they've never pulled out the pin, and that pin is locking it in place. So that way, if you actually bump your fire extinguisher, it's not gonna go off. So pull, aim, squeeze, sweep.
You know, I can say I'm at my age, I've never used a fire extinguisher on a fire. I've tested a few just playing around, but I've never used one on a fire. Yep. When I aim it, do I aim it at the base of the, where do I aim it? Is there a better place to aim it on the fire?
Yeah, so it's also going to partially depend on what type of fire it is. So a grease fire, again, because a grease fire, you are talking about an actual liquid, right? You're talking about something. So for a grease fire, I mean, you're always the safe bet is always going to be to aim at the seat of the fire. That's always going to be a safe bet. But so and it's also going to depend on what type of fire extinguisher you have. So that's where just doing basic research on what type of fire extinguisher, because if it's a water-based fire extinguisher and you point and you don't know that, I think that's where a little bit of research, and there's different labeling on all the fire extinguisher that'll tell you what type
there's
of,
like ABC or something.
ABCD, and there's a K for kitchen. There's kitchen fire extinguisher, so it's got the chemical that is needed. So a lot of fire extinguishers, because some fire extinguishers whole purpose is to cool the fire. There's some where it's supposed to smother the fire. So there's different ways in which you can put out a fire using a fire extinguisher.
Okay.
So
man, I'm learning something there. I didn't know it was that.
That's why I'm the guest.
That's why you're the expert. You're the stud. Yeah.
So the next most common cause of fire in America is space heaters. And we are doing this show, and not too long ago, a few days ago, the city of New York had a tragic fire. They had an apartment complex, and it was deemed that the cause of the fire was a space heater, and it killed 17 people, 8 of which were kids. And this is tragic. This is terrible. And again, not saying that space heaters can't be used, but the problem lies when you're using a space heater or an additional heating source for your house, and then you fall asleep. That's typically the times when we see that, or an overloaded, which we'll get into faulty wiring, an overloaded outlet where a space heater is plugged in, because those space heaters draw a lot of amps. They're drawing a lot of energy in order to run these space heaters. So a cheaper space heater, man, they don't have a fail proof, right? So they'll just continue to heat until, like, I know I've had a couple cheap space heaters before, and if you turn them on for any length of time and you touch that wiring, the actual wiring, even though it's insulated wiring, is still hot. So
that in itself should let you know. Like, I've had certain tools and stuff like that where the wire gets extra hot.
Yep.
I'm like, nah, this is not right. Way too much resistance in there to heat up. That's not good.
And most new space heaters now have a tip proof. So if they fall over, they will shut themselves off, because again, if you think about, any hardwood floors, carpeting, something like that, over an extended period of time of continually being heated by that source, it's going to catch fire.
Yeah.
So make sure, if you do have a space heater, if you are using them, be mindful that don't be in a position where you potentially could fall asleep using them, because that's never going to end well. Because if that runs overnight, you're asking for trouble. So when it comes to those space heaters, I think it's just the New York City. Just when I was talking about this and thinking of this, just really reminded me that the tragedy in which those space heaters can really cause. Not saying you should never use them. Just be mindful and be mature about it. You probably shouldn't put a space heater in your kid's room, because they're not going to know that they need to turn that off before they go to bed. Or
if you could put a timer on it or something that would automatically shut it down. Yep. Yeah, there's different ways to go about that.
And then the last most common fire in America is faulty wiring, and this is something. This may in your mind be one of those where you're like, well, there's not much I can do about that, right? I mean, it's behind the walls. We talked about the electrical fires; it's behind the walls. Man, I think there's a lot to be said about when you bring an electrician into your house to work on your electric, because it is such a common place to start a fire. Man, make sure that electrician knows what the heck they're doing. Like, there's nothing wrong with asking for certifications for these electricians to ensure that. And I'll be the first to admit, I've attempted to do few odds and ends electric. I hate electric.
Right.
I hate it. For multiple reasons, one of which I know the significant damage that it can cause. So I think there's a lot to be said about ensuring that our electric is being done by a professional, by someone who actually knows what the heck they're doing, versus, because again, electricity causes heat, and if there's faulty wiring, if there's wiring that's not where it's supposed to be, you can cause a lot of damage.
Yeah.
A lot of damage.
Yeah.
I mean, on top of, I mentioned before, not overloading our outlets is huge. I mean, especially around Christmas time. We just got done with Christmas. Golly, like the old Griswold here. Like, I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's only 15 plugs plugged into that outlet. That's not bad.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, when we go out and do fire inspections, one thing we always look at for businesses, again, this is businesses, and there's different regulations. Obviously, for your home, if you want to use extension cords as a permanent fixture, that's obviously on you. We ensure that our businesses do not use extension cords for a permanent wiring. It's something that's they were never meant to do that.
Right.
So I think it's just a decent point to make sure, if you are using extension cord for a permanent fixture, like obviously that it's not what their intended use for. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm not using extension cord for an extended period of time, but it's something we check with our businesses.
And buy the right extension cord for the job. I mean,
Yep.
if you're running heavy amperage equipment, then you've got to buy an extension cord that can handle that kind of pull. So, around my house, I have a couple cheapy extension cords. I don't want to be running heavy tools and stuff off of those.
Yep.
I can run a light off of that. That's about it,
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, again, those are three of the most common reasons why there's a fire in America. Man, when we start talking about fire prevention and protecting our family from those very fires, there are going to be incidents where fires happen, right? Especially we talk out in California, the wildland fires. My goodness, like there's not much we can do there. We can do a few odds and ends stuff around the house to ensure that we are doing preventative maintenance to ensure that what we can control. We're not going to be the reason for the fire, but at the end of the day, stuff happens, right?
But speaking of that, like out in California, out west, where these fires are hitting at kind of an unprecedented rate, now they are talking about, you can't necessarily stop the fire if it's already started, but now how we build the house, what we build it out of, what kind of landscaping we have around it, if anything at all, like all those things are things that can help reduce the damage. And and again, that may not happen in your house, a wildfire like that. Like we don't tend to have that here in the Midwest where we live, but out there, hey, as a dad, you need to be, hey, I need to think about what I'm going to do. We have some friends that live out in the Colorado area where that fire just ripped through and almost 1,000 homes. And his home is in that neighborhood. Now, his home did not get destroyed. He was just right outside of it.
Wow.
And they were just talking about how crazy that was, how it was almost like a tornado that was bouncing around, and it might hit this house, but it doesn't hit that house. So now they're rethinking, what do we need to do in this situation?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, when we talk about what we do if there is a fire, and this is something, or hopefully setting ourselves up for minimal damage, right? And one of the most common, one of the most talked about things is smoke detectors. Ensuring that we have a smoke detector at the bare minimum, making sure there's a smoke detector on every single floor. One step above that is making sure there's a smoke detector in every single room in your house, as far as bedrooms go. This is something to me is, yes, they can be a little pricey, right? Depending on which ones you get. There's two different types of smoke detectors, generally speaking. So do a little bit of research. There's photoelectric and ionization. There's two different types of smoke detectors out there, like and they do different things. So one reads rapid smoke or fire, smoke growth, and one reads very, very minimal. So again, it's going to be dependent on which type of smoke detector you deem. Talk to your local fire department; they'll be able to direct you as far as which one's better for you and your home. So ensuring that there's a smoke detector in every single room, checking them regularly. My goodness, I can't tell you. People just think that there's no maintenance involved in smoke detectors, which for the most part there's not. Right? You put them up there and you expect them to do what they're going to do. Right? This is something that when we do our installations at my department, when we do installation, something we always do is we don't like to put a smoke detector close to the stove. And this might seem very counterintuitive because obviously if a stove is one of the most common reasons why there's a fire. I don't know about you, Merle, but when I cook, I have a tendency to set my smoke
detector. That's how we know dinner's ready.
But think about this. We are all creatures of habit, including our kids. And if your kids continually hear that smoke detector going off when you're cooking, when you're not cooking and there is a fire and they hear that same smoke detector going off, we are creatures of habit. And how many times have I done this where I'm cooking and I take the smoke detector off and I pull the batteries out, right, to set it down so that way it stops going off. So if you are putting your smoke detector in a general area where it's going to go off a lot, your kids are going to be trained to think that that's not a big deal.
They're desensitized.
Yes. So just a point of reference, just not that it shouldn't be in the general vicinity of your kitchen, but probably right over top of the stove is not a good spot for it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, testing, my goodness, we need to test our smoke detectors on a fairly regular basis, whether that's monthly, whether that's quarterly, ensuring that you don't just put them up there and you leave it. And just a point on the lifespan, so most smoke detectors are good for about 10 years. That's a generally speaking, and if you're not sure, you can take your smoke detector off and you can read the back of it, and it'll tell you how long. There's going to be a date that's stamped on every single smoke detector, as long as it's a reputable smoke detector. It's not like something you made in your garage, right? There will be a date that's stamped on it. It has to be per the federal law. There has to be a stamp on the date that in which it was put in service. And most smoke detectors will also on the back of it, and this is something because we go on this a lot, there will be codes. So if your smoke detector beeps once, it means this, and it'll be on the back of your smoke detector. It'll give you just a brief description on 2 beeps means you need to clean the filter out. 3 beeps means it's the end of the life of the whatever the case may be. But just check the back of your smoke detectors. Again, just on basic things, just educating yourself on the smoke detector you do have.
Yeah, they're a pain in the butt when they need to be replaced or whatever. Like my house is 16 years old, and I did not have a routine where I went and I replaced them all at once, but they all have a life to them. And so they, you can even change the batteries out and stuff. And the one just kept on. I took it out in the backyard and I shot it. But so I've been slowly replacing all of those in the house.
Yep. So this next thing I wanted to talk about, this is a huge movement in the fire service right now. It's the close before you doze. This is something every single door, I shouldn't say every door, majority of doors in residential structures have some form of fireproofing behind them. So right now the big movement is close before you doze. You might have seen billboards up with this very slogan on it. It is just and this is something, it's gonna be a habit to get into for you and your family before you go to bed. One of the things you were talking about, going around locking your doors, one of the things you should be doing is closing all the doors of every bedroom. And this is because open doors are, again, one of the things that happened in New York is there was a lot of open doors. Now they were majority of them were open to the hallways where there was where you ample amount of oxygen that can get to the fire. But there's been proven cases of making sure that if your door is closed, it actually is a fire barrier for whoever's in that bedroom. So, in the fire service, we always say closed doors and open opportunity for finding a victim, because realistically speaking, if that door is closed, there's a good opportunity for somebody to be safe behind that door. So just talking to your kids, and this is going to be something hard, because if your kids are normally used to sleeping with the door open, to then close the door, that's when you have to tell your kids about there's no monsters and so on and so forth. But it's a really good practice to shutting your doors before you go to bed.
That is a tough one, because we've had our kids, when we adopted our kids, they were all very fearful of nighttime and dark. And so not only did they want the doors open, but they also wanted lights on, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, how do you sleep in here? It's like sunshine.
Yep.
And so it took us a good year or so, maybe longer than that, even for a couple of them, where we slowly close those doors down. And we were able to close them, but try to keep a light on, especially, like for the fear factor. And that was the reasoning. We also took some time too, though, if you close the door and you feel like, you have to get out, how they can get out other than the door, whether it's a window or something like that. And, luckily my kids are not on any like second or third floor, so they could get out a window relatively easy. Easily. So,
which that brings up a great point. That this, they put acronyms and everything in the fire service, but they named it EDITH, EDITH. So exit drills in the home.
Okay.
So this is something we whenever we do prevention, whenever we talk to kids, making sure you have an exit in your home, making sure you know a safe place you're going to go, that if your house is on fire, this is where you're going. You're leaving all your stuffed animals behind. You are making a beeline here, because on the fire department side, we are going to find a group of people, and we're going to say, who's still inside? We're still going to search it. Hopefully your fire department believes this. We're still going to search it because, in the heat of the moment, you're not thinking logically. So if your daughter has someone stay the night, you may not think that. So hopefully your fire department is aggressive and going to go in there and search that space still. But having a drill, having a place where your kids know that they're going to go to, that is, again, this is something maybe a lot of people don't know. Preferably not close to the street, because if your house is on fire, you are going to get 5, 6, 7, 8 fire apparatus that those guys are in, their emotions are running high because there is a structure fire, that someone's house on fire, and they're there to do a job. And not to say that the person driving those vehicles is not going to be paying attention, but that's just one less thing that they have to worry about. So preferably keeping that safe place for your kids away from the street, keeping them somewhere far away. And this is something, man, if your house, God forbid your house is on fire, do not call 911 and then go get your kids. And this may sound really stupid to say, but it happens every day in America. Get your kids, get them out of the house, and then call 911. Because depending on where you live, 911 there may be a hold, right? You may be waiting 2 or 3 minutes before someone actually picks up. Again, depending on where you're at in America, some of the rural areas of America, they don't have a 911 dispatcher that's waiting to answer your phone call right away. So getting your kids out of the house, and then, if you have to go to a neighbor's house, if you have to go get someone else's phone, then make that phone call.
That's
and again, it sucks because, every minute that someone's not putting the fire out, that fire is growing exponentially. And so, one of the last points when it comes to the actual, when it comes to preventing and protecting your home, how are you going to respond? I think this is really important. We talk all the time about trying to maintain a level sense, keeping emotions out of it. When it comes to your house on fire, it's going to be very, very difficult. But again, you as the strong dad need to be that steady Eddie, right? You need to, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I know that if I'm unable to get to my girl's room, I'm going through a wall, right?
Yeah.
I tell my girl all the time, if mom and dad are home, we're not leaving upstairs without you. You're coming with us, right? And ensuring and let them know that you are there. You're going to protect them. You're going to do whatever it takes to ensure that they're getting out. We talk all the time with our girls about feeling the doorknob. If the doorknob's hot, you're not going out. You're going to stay in there. You're going to tuck. You're going to tuck. What blankets underneath the doorway to keep the smoke from coming in. So talking about this thing, and talking about it in a sense of calm, right? So if this happens, this is what we're going to do, and very matter of fact about it. No second guessing it. If they ask questions and you don't know the answers, man, talk to your local fire department. Which truly is my last point. We in America, and I say this because I am a fireman, we need to do a better job of holding our firemen accountable. And I say this because, again, this is what I do. Call your local fire department and ask them when the last time those guys did training. You expect the firemen, when you call 911, you expect them to show up and do the job that they're supposed to. And this is something that I take very personal, because the firemen that are protecting my house, I hope they feel and are as aggressive as I am. I want the firemen to show up to my house to have a like mind that I am. Not that I'm perfect by any means. I make a lot of mistakes in my job, but I go to the drawing board, right? I go to multiple trainings a year to ensure that I can be the best fireman out there.
Yeah.
So hold your fire departments accountable. There's nothing wrong with calling them and say, when's the last time your guys did training? When's the last time that those guys did a real world exercise where they knew, they know how to do search patterns? Like, hold your fire departments accountable. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're paying for their salaries. Hold them accountable.
How different is it when you're in a volunteer fire department versus a professional fire department? Like,
vastly different.
Yeah, because I in our area it's mostly volunteer, but maybe a couple professional guys there. So the whole training aspect is
70% of America is still volunteer.
Yeah,
70% of the fire service is still volunteer. So it's a struggle, right? But those volunteers they're still responding to structure fires,
right? Just
because you're volunteer versus paid.
Well, and if you're going to volunteer, you should still take the time to get trained up, because this is not a laughing matter.
Not at all.
You wouldn't, that's a big deal. So if you're doing it just because your buddies are volunteers and it's a good thing to hang out to do on a weekday night, that's not probably a good reason to be a volunteer fireman.
So yeah, those are just few odds and ends stuff that I picked up on it, and you know, the close before you doze is a really, really big one right now. There's a lot of good practice and a lot of good studies that have shown that is greatly beneficial. So if nothing else you take away from this, close before you doze is a really good one.
Good deal. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
All right.
I mean, that's a lot of good stuff. I think the takeaway from this is, first and foremost, let's be intentional about protecting our family and our home, the physical structure, the people that are there. It doesn't take long. As a man, you should walk through that house. You should know the layout of the house. Like in our house, we have doors to get into the rooms, but I also know how to bust into every room if the door's not there. I mean, I know where the drywall is. I know where, you know what, I'll, just like you said, no matter what, I will go in and I can bust through closet drywall and get people. So just because there's a wall there doesn't mean I don't have access.
Yep.
But as the man, I don't know that, you know, a lot of people would think that way, but that's part of our job to know how we can get what we need to get.
Yep, I like it. You have to, if nothing else, start going over. If you don't already have an exit plan for your kids, teach them the way in which they're going to get out of their house. Go through those steps and do it in a very calm manner. It's a very matter of fact. This is what we're going to do if this happened.
Yeah, one of the biggest killers in all these situations are emotions. When emotions run amok and people panic. And that's why, you know, I've referred to many times in the school systems, we run monthly fire drills.
Yep.
And so we can get, you know, 5, 6, 7, 800 kids out of a building in a matter of minutes.
Yep.
And they do it calmly. And that's how we keep people safe. And so in your own home, your kids just need to know, hey, this is what we do in these situations, whether it's a storm, a fire, whatever.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, we want to thank you guys. Hopefully this is just something to open your eyes, to get you thinking. This was a very practical show and hopefully a useful show. So we want to thank you guys for listening. Do us a favor, continue to listen to our shows and share our shows. We need you guys' help as we continue to grow and get out there with these messages, looking for guests as well. If you have a guest or you have a personality that you think would offer great insight or experience, share their name with us. We're always looking for just great stories and inspiration, ways to challenge men. So help us out with that. That would be really cool. We also want to thank our sponsors, the Kreimer's Beer House and Casey's Outdoor Solutions. We want to thank these guys for coming alongside and helping us do what we do here at Strong Dads.
I like it. Thanks for having me on the show, Merle.
I'm going to give you a B+ on.
All right, I can take that. I can live with a B+.
I'll give you an A. Jeez, that hurts me to say that.
Sounds good. Really do appreciate you guys. Go out there and be some strong dads. Hey, this is Kyle Crofford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Kreimer's Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Kreimer's Beer House was started in 1982 by the Kreimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Kreimer's Beer House.